And one of the ways we want to do it, and we passed bills through the House of Representatives already to do that, and passed bills which have been signed by the President, is to create an environment in which you can make it in America, manufacture it in America, grow it in America, and sell it to the rest of the world. That's the way we're going to create good-paying jobs with good benefits and security for working people in this country. We need to make it in America, and we need to make it in America. That's an agenda that I believe ought to be front and center, and when I'm reelected, if I'm reelected, with your help, that's an agenda I'm going to pursue.
Mr. Lawler.
If I could use about 10 seconds to say that I do not want 32 to 50 million Americans to go without health insurance. And that has been an emotional ploy that has been done so many times. As I continue to get lumped into a party, a class, a system, my heart goes out just as much to every single person. My family understands that. I understand that. So I want to make sure that's addressed. It's not about not having compassion and concern for those that don't have health insurance. It's about accountability and finding ways to solve the problem that are at least constitutional. We have created an entitlement society by which we go out and buy what we want and we beg for what we need. That has to change. We have to hold ourselves accountable for what we do. I remember watching someone in a soup line getting a bowl of soup from the First Lady. She was kind enough to come down to a charitable organization and provide free soup for folks. Well, the gentleman standing in line to get a bowl of soup whipped out his BlackBerry and took a picture of the First Lady giving him soup. Now, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but if I can afford a BlackBerry, I can afford a bowl of Progresso soup. We're going to have to start taking responsibility for what we do in all aspects and find a way for those that need health care, taking it case by case, to do it in a way that supports the constitutionality of a bill and addresses the actual problem, which is the price structure, the cost structure. In short, because I'm short on time, I believe in the American people. Our backs have been against the wall before. We can do it again if we create the right atmosphere that brings private jobs into our country and into our district.
Thank you. It is now time for each candidate. It is now time for each candidate to deliver their closing remarks. I would ask the audience to withhold your applause until after all candidates have made their statements. And by pre-selection, the closing statements will begin with Mr. Lawler.
Let me thank, may I stand?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I want to thank everyone for being here at this
Go over there.
forum.
Be easier to go over there.
Oh, thank you so much.
Certainly.
I'm just trying to help you.
Thank you, sir.
Bipartisan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, kind sir. You're way too kind. I hope to return the favor by letting you spend more time with your grandchildren in the future. This is not a partisan issue. It really isn't. It's about a philosophical difference between where our country is and where it's going. I don't want to be perceived as one that presents any type of personal attacks. I have nothing against my opponent personally, and I've said this before, that I would fight for him in Kosovo the same way I fought for my 4 daughters. The issue is not a personal one because we're all Americans at the end of the day. But here is the issue. We failed as a majority leader not to pass a balanced budget. We've also failed to pass a budget, period, instead coming back home to campaign. At the same time, in fact, it was the 29th of this month, just yesterday, that the response of my opponent was, if I might read his response, Nancy Pelosi is a hardworking, focused individual trying to do the best thing she can for the American public. We don't read the bills unless we're mandated by our constituency. And in context, we kind of go along to get along. I say no. I say the opportunity to recognize Americans for who they are is right now. I say the time to make sure every American has equal rights and allows them to compete for equal things. I say it's time now for us to get back our constitutional government, do the right thing that we're supposed to by our budget, rebuild confidence in the everyday consumer so we can return our country back to the greatness it was founded. When the founding fathers stepped off the boat, there was no Bank of America to give them a loan. There was no development company to build them a home, but they understood freedom, and if you leave their tax dollars alone, they could innovatively build the greatest nation on God's green earth. All of us weren't represented there at that time, but we are now. We can turn a corner, and if we've done it once, we can do it again. I believe in the greatness of our country, and come November the 2nd, I would truly appreciate your vote. Thank you so much, and God bless you all for being here.
Mr. Schickel, would you like to use the podium?
No, I'll go ahead and sit right here. Thank you. I actually think I can be heard better. Now, Mr. Hoyer likes to talk about his ability to create jobs, but the fact of the matter is that Mr. Hoyer does not create any jobs because Mr. Hoyer does not own a business. Yeah. He's never risked his capital, and he's never risked his reputation in the free market. But I can tell you about one business where he had a huge impact, and that was my family's restaurant, because Mr. Hoyer helped put my family out of business. Now, you see, in 1996, Mr. Hoyer, along with the Republican-controlled Congress, decided to raise minimum wage. Now, I don't know if you support that or not. Now, when they raised minimum wage on my family, it added about $45,000 worth of extra cost to our business. Now, we held on for a little while, but ultimately that business failed. And somehow my family didn't qualify for a bailout. Now, when this happened, I lost not only my job, but I also lost my house at the same time. I went from being a self-employed young man with the entire universe of possibilities ahead of him to living out in my car and not knowing where my next meal would come from. So you think about that. You think about that when Mr. Hoyer tells you about his acumen with creating jobs. You think about that when a Republican candidate tells you that their party is the party of constitutionally limited government. You think about that when somebody tells you that the government has not done enough. Now, when you see things the way I do, you realize that this country we are being lied to and manipulated all the time. We are being lied to and manipulated by self-serving individuals. Now, I will make this promise with you, okay? I will wake up every morning, I will think about you, I will fight and sweat and bleed for you, I will fight to get this government under control, I will fight to get this government out of our lives, and I will fight to put the power back in your hands so that each and every one of us can reach our full potential in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoyer.
Again, I want to thank St. Mary's College, I want to thank the NAACP, and I want to thank all of you for being here, whether you're for me or for Mr. Schickel or for Mr. Lawler. I want to thank you for being here. This is what democracy is about. I have been in office for a significant period of time, and I've heard stories like that. That's why I supported unemployment insurance extension, so that the pain that you see reflected here, it gets some help, gets somebody to reach out a hand and help. Not for charity's sake, but because that's what we ought to do as a moral society, in my view. Now, let me say something. Results. I'm not a pig in a poke. You know what I can do. You know what I have done. You know what I believe. Here's what I said on December 7th, 1991, when I announced for this district. I run for re-election with a firm conviction that what the people of our district want is a congressman who's honest, who is effective, and who is representative of their best aspirations and hopes for their community and their country. I believe I've done that. But it's not just about what I've done for the bases or what I've done for transportation or what I've done to bring jobs to this district. I was the chairman of the Helsinki Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. And I went to the Soviet Union and talked about political freedom, talked about human rights, talked about religious freedom. I was the sponsor of the Americans with Disabilities Act. For those of you who may know or are disabled, 43 million Americans have more access in America today because I was the principal sponsor of the Americans with Disabilities Act and worked with the first President Bush in a bipartisan way to get over 400 votes for that bill. I worked for the Federal Employee Pay Comparability Act also with President Bush and Frank Wolf from Virginia, a Republican, so that federal employees would get fair pay. Now, the Tea Party apparently wants to lay off 25% of the federal employees. I don't know which 25% they want to leave at Pax River. I sponsored the Help America Vote Act, which gives us a more efficient system than we had in 2000 when the system failed. I worked with Roy Blunt and Senator Kit Bond, a Republican, on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. We had a terrorist act just yesterday. I'm concerned about that. That's why I did not join my party. And my party, and some people in my party were critical of me. But I thought passing the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, working with President George Bush II, was the right thing to do for America. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you believe I have worked on behalf of our country, on behalf of our state, on behalf of our district, and on behalf of a better future. If you do, I ask you to keep me on the job. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can now officially applaud and show your signs of approval. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming today.
Living in Georgia become a sin.